Welcome to Let's Make a Mixtape, a music conversation podcast. This first conversation might be a little one-sided because I want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and invite you to join me on this journey where I delve deep into the profound impact that a single song can have on someone. Music is so much more than just sound waves. It's moving and transformative, a mirror into our subconscious. Hi. My name is Ryan Sweeney, and I'll start with a reflection into my own mind. We'll begin with my on-screen hero, Anthony Bourdain. One of many things I love about his work is the use of food as a medium for connection. Sharing a meal has a way of knocking down borders and building relationships. It opens the gates to get to know someone and what drives them. Over the years, I've found that music can do the same thing. Food and music are two universal languages. You can really get to understand who people are, where they've come from, and where they're going. Both food and music have the amazing ability to influence their surroundings, forming a kind of cultural DNA. While there are many nuanced differences across the world, food and music have a social bonding element because there is something that just feels so familiar about them, no matter where you are. In this vein, I've picked Roadrunner as my first song in this mini Prologue playlist. It's the opening track to the classic self-titled record by the Modern Lovers. Jonathan Richman wrote that endearing song about being in love with his own loneliness, driving around industrial parks in his dad's car. It's also the song the Anthony Bourdain documentary was named after. The documentary, which I'll get around to watching one day when I need a good cathartic cry. I'll link to the playlist in the show notes so that you can listen along to Roadrunner and a few other songs that I'm going to mention in this episode. As you've probably experienced yourself, music is emotional. It helps us get through the hard times and celebrate the good times. Listening to a certain song can trigger a specific memory or emotion. It's why we create soundtracks to our lives. Music is a mood and memory bookmark, a time capsule. One music memory I like to look back on with great fondness is a live show in Mexico City back in 2018. I host a radio show called Global Garage, which airs on WHUP, a community radio station based in Hillsborough, North Carolina. During this show, I play rock tangential music from all around the world with a couple of my friends. Before traveling to Mexico City, I wanted to see if there were any shows to go check out while I was visiting. I found a show featuring the Broccolis, a now defunct garage band, and Cascabel, a psych rock band. I reached out to both bands in advance and asked if they wanted to record an interview for Global Garage. We had a great conversation and they put on a fantastic show afterwards. But that's not what has stuck with me over the years. Hanging around between sets and chatting with other people who came out to the show left me feeling like I was at a show in my own hometown music scene. Even though I was just a random dude from North Carolina who just showed up to a rock show, everyone welcomed me in as if I was a scene regular. It was beautiful and life-affirming. I hope that everyone has that feeling of community through music. In honor of that show, I've included The Veggie Man by the Broccolis and Di Cabeza by Cascabel on the mini Prelude playlist. Like many during the pandemic, I felt disconnected from my community. As a way to cope with the inability to travel and partially due to the general mind fuck that is isolation, I started reaching out to some of my Global Garage contacts to share curated playlists for the show. Instead of a traditional interview for radio, I asked guests to put together a playlist, and in between blocks of songs, we would chat about their selections, about the projects they were working on, and their hometown scene. It was a great way to follow up and check on friends that I had made through Global Garage. It also became my preferred go-to interview style. Now that you know a little bit more about me and the evolution of my musical journey that led to this project, let's talk about what you can expect from this podcast going forward. This podcast will consist of seasons centered around a song prompt. Guests won't just be musicians, but people for whom music means something profoundly special. It could be a musician, It could be a comedian, a chef, an author, an activist, or hell, even just one of my close personal friends who has an interesting story to tell. During each episode, I'll introduce the guest and chat with them about why they chose the song they did, following wherever the conversation takes us. To avoid angering the copyright gods, I won't include clips from the selected song, but I will curate a playlist that I'll maintain on Spotify and YouTube each week so you can listen along as we, make a mixtape. Some seasons might lean towards one genre more than others just by nature of the prompt, who my guests are, and my own default musical preferences. But as a rule, other than offering the prompt, I'm not putting any genre restrictions on the song choices. As for this first season, I felt it only appropriate to ask my guests to share their favorite first track on an album. I'm very excited about this first season of guests, which includes several musicians from as close as my neighborhood to as far away as Greece. You'll also hear from a multidisciplinary artist, an influencer in the music TikTok community, a producer, a podcaster, and a comedian. During the following 12 weeks, shows will be uploaded every Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe to both the podcast and the playlist to stay updated with each new episode. If you want to see the show transcript and check out any of the references discussed in a given episode, visit letsmixtape.com. If you want to follow the podcast on social media, whatever your social platform preference is, we're probably on it at Let's Mixtape. Thanks for tagging along with me on the sonic journey, and be sure to tune in next Tuesday for the start of Season 1 opening tracks with my first guest, Carl Agel. We'll talk about his opening track selection, coming up in the hardcore scene, playing the legendary New York venue CBGB's during his time with Corrosion of Conformity, growing up in Hong Kong, his current band Lie Heavy, and more. I want to go ahead and thank the people who had a hand in this podcast, whether directly or indirectly. My partner Brittany for both encouraging and editing me. Brian for helping me brainstorm the idea, as well as Paul and Chris from Gold Garage for providing the inspiration. Big thanks to Scotty Sandwich for writing and recording the show's theme music.